be
and everything
able to see
attached
it
to
that
it in all the
clearly. And
cases.
she may be blocked as
And I
well at
have
times
reviewed it, so
by,
I'd rather you not
lawyer
regurgitate
positioning and
that
so forth.
based on our time limit, but anything you wish to add to that is fine. If you want to, if I could focus you a little
Please.
bit. Okay.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right. And yes, sir.
So this is
As
TMZ's
far as
lawyer.
your
Yes.
comments about Virginia Rule of Evidence 2:508, that's a criminal rule of evidence. So that's not your
Understood, Your Honor.
not your strongest argument. And as far as what goes on is when the or if the witness testifies, whether it's hearsay or it's third-party knowledge, that's something I'll deal with at trial. So again, not what I'm concerned with. As far as Supreme Court Rule 314, which I would like you to talk a little bit about that as far as intervention. And I got to tell you where I'm at right now. The concern, the issue I have with the argument is intervention obviously would make you a plaintiff or defendant in the case, and it has to deal with an issue that's germane to this case, and this is a defamation case. So if you could just tailor your argument to that issue, sir.
Sure, I'm happy to address the intervention. For the record, Your Honor, Charles Tobin from the law firm of Ballard Spahr.
Yes,
Here
sir, Mr.
representing TMZ, which is the publisher of news and entertainment for the celebrity and entertainment industry. And Your Honor, we're seeking to intervene simply to protect the relationship between reporters and their sources when it comes to reporting news in the public interest. We, as the court noted, we really don't have a dog in this hunt as far as Mr. Depp misheard. We're really here purely on the First Amendment-based issue of reporters' privilege and reporters and their sources. Your Honor, the intervention rule, as the court is aware, allows intervention by anybody where the issue is germane to the subject matter of the proceeding. And certainly, Your Honor, the purported testimony, the proffered testimony of a former employee of TMZ who purports to be in a position to disclose confidential information learned during the operation of journalism, during his work as a journalist, is a germane issue that is being raised in this case. And Your Honor, we would point the court to the Tafts, Fletcher, Malden, and Reed versus Southern Bank and Trust case, 213 Virginia Circuit, Lexus 253. It's a Norfolk Circuit Court decision from 2013. And there it was an interpleader action. The funds had been interpleaded into the court by two trust companies that were fighting over it. And the man who had sold his property, who had no interest in the funds themselves, intervened in the case because he was uncertain as to his liability for excess funds, which was an issue that was not directly in litigation between the two parties. It was not part of the cause of action between the two trusts fighting over the money that had been pleaded into the court. The circuit court held that certainly the rights of that man was going to be affected by the decision making in the case. He would be prejudiced if he didn't have an opportunity to intervene, and no party was in the position to assert his rights. And so similarly here, Your Honor, TMZ is a news organization. It routinely accepts information, as is common in journalism, under exchanges of promises of confidentiality. If it is not able to intervene in this action, and neither of the parties is going to be in a position to assert the reporter's privilege, it is TMZ's journalist privilege that we're talking about, then the rights are certainly going to be prejudiced.
But if the witness, in all the cases, and I reviewed the cases that you had, in those cases, the witness was compelled to testify and came and was forced to testify, so there was an issue about the privilege of the witness. It's my understanding in this case, this witness wants to testify and is not under subpoena.
He has been subpoenaed, Your Honor.
Or subpoena.
Okay. But he's saying he wants to testify.
Bench, you just said that's incorrect.
Yep, they're screwed.
Okay.
Your Honor, I have a copy of a subpoena that was entered last night compelling Mr. Tremaine to give testimony in this case. And so he is coming under a compulsion under subpoena.
Well, and if he takes a stand and he asserts some sort of privilege, then that's something I will deal with at that time.
Sure, but I'm here because of the scenario where he may not assert that privilege.
Right,
Well, then,
exactly.
too bad,
And
so
that's-
sad.
You don't have
I
that
guess
right.
we'll say
I'm
all your
sorry.
cases that you showed
Sorry, Doug.
were the opposite, where they did assert the privilege.
Well, it is a unique situation.
Right,
where-
and I understand you might have some
No, it's not. Your case law sucks.
issues with the former employee, and you have some avenues.
This is one of those regular
um,
people would never get
deal
this
with
to happen
that.
for them. But Johnny
But
Depp can.
once he testifies and the privilege is waived, we have lost our opportunity to intervene and
I
to
understand.
intercede.
All right.
And Your Honor, the privilege, I know, Your Honor, you said you read the case law.
I did.
Appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
But the privilege
I call
has
this
been
yesterday?
recognized by the Virginia Supreme
Right.
Court in the Brown case and applied by the circuit courts uniformly.
You can't
It's a
tell
very
her until
important
she says it, Rob.
underpinning of the relationship between reporters and sources and reporters and the public. Without the ability to enforce its promises by current employees or former employees, a news organization will have absolutely no control over being able to enforce its promises.
You could have
And
asked
so we
for an
would ask the
exemption.
court to permit us to intervene and to assert the privilege that belongs to TMZ, which is the organization, after all, Your Honor, that would be responsible to the source if the privilege were waived.
All right. I understand, Mr. Tobin, your argument. I appreciate it very much. Okay. Did the parties wish to be heard?
I appreciate it. Goodbye.
I think it would be dangerous for Amber Heard to
Good
make
morning, Your
a
After.
a
good
supporting
afternoon,
position
Your
on this
Honor.
motion.
I'd like to begin where Your Honor began. As a threshold matter, the court should deny TMZ's motion to intervene. Intervention is not appropriate for the reasons suggested in Your Honor's questions. As Your Honor is well aware, intervention is only appropriate with leave of court where a third party seeks to, quote, file a pleading to intervene as a plaintiff or as a defendant to assert any claim or defense germane to the subject matter of the proceeding, unquote. Virginia Supreme Court Rule 3:14. As Mr. Tobin, to his credit, has conceded, TMZ is not asking to file a pleading. It cannot properly categorize itself either as plaintiff nor defendant, and it seeks to assert no claim or defense germane to the subject matter of this action. Moreover, even if the privilege were applicable, which is not the case here, the testimony intended is directly relevant and would outweigh any qualified privilege. Quote, an intervener must be asserting an interest that is part of the subject matter of the litigation, unquote, Hudson versus Jarrett, 269 Virginia 24/32. Here, as Mr. Tobin stated, TMZ seeks to protect potential information solicited from a third-party witness, which is in no way a matter before this court, citing Commonwealth versus Gill, 89 Virginia Circuit 323, a 2014 case denying a motion to intervene where the intervener filed it, quote, to protect a property right, not a matter before the court, unquote. The outcome of this trial will not affect TMZ, and it does not have a sufficient interest in the subject matter of this suit to intervene. See Texas Fletcher, Maiden, and Reed, PC versus Bank National Trust Co., 2013 Westlaw 5849140, granting, and this is distinguishing it, granting the motion to intervene where the intervener's liability would be affected by the outcome of the litigation. Finally, Your Honor, TMZ lacks standing to object to testimony by a third party in this action because TMZ, as Your Honor pointed out, is not being compelled to testify. TMZ's reliance on the Philip Morris case for the proposition that the privilege cannot be circumvented by seeking confidential source information from an employee is inapposite. 36 VA Circuit at 1. For one thing, as noted in that case, there is no testimonial privilege akin to that enjoyed under the Fifth Amendment, which would allow a reporter to refuse to appear before a grand jury and answer questions. And Philip Morris, as Your Honor is aware, the party issued a third-party subpoena for records to trace confidential sources. Philip Morris is inapposite here, as that case related, as this case is related to witness testimony, not records. As Your Honor suggested, TMZ's quarrel, if any, is with Mr. Tremaine to the extent that he had an NDA that was enforceable, applicable, and that's not what we're hearing from Mr. Tobin. So to the extent that TMZ, which is not exactly Edward R. Murrow, Your Honor, to the extent they have a beef, as it were.
That was below the belt.
Beef,
You can't
it
judge
is
the
with
value of the news
Mr.
organization,
It is
Your
with
Honor.
Mr. Tremaine.
A little side eye,
not with
but
Mr.
not
Depp.
going to hurt anybody.
And they clearly do not have standing to assert or to intervene because they're not intervening as a party, plaintiff or defendant. So we respectfully submit, to the extent the court disagrees, I can go into the arguments
That's
why
right,
the
sir.
privilege is inapplicable, but I will
right.
reserve that.
Thank you. All right, yes.
Mike
Jane?
Qualia, thank you for the very generous
Your
super
Honor, I would
chat.
like to
We'll
weigh in
address it
from
later.
just a different perspective,
Okay.
and that is because we're trying to deal with some important issues of privilege, et cetera. But from our perspective, representing Ms. Hurd, we have issues with this witness separately, and I want to make them very clear for the record. This is
that
somebody
he
who
doesn't have
should have
first
been
person
identified
knowledge.
in discovery,
Oh,
was
okay.
never. Second of all, it's not relevant whether, apparently what they're saying he's going to testify, and we have not had the opportunity to discover that, is he's going to claim that someone leaked to TMZ that Ms. Hurd was going to obtain the TRO on that Friday and also leak the video, the kitchen video with Mr. Depp being rather violent.
Someone is all we're gonna get?
And
I do think this
I'm
nukes
almost
her
certain
case.
he's not going to claim it's
If
Ms. Hurd.
TMZ
So
comes
I
and
think it's
says
never
that
going to come
Amber
in.
Heard leaked
Ms.
all this
Berhoff,
stuff.
I understand all that argument. Do you
hearsay.
have any argument as to
Yeah.
this particular?
Yeah.
Yep,
does.
shut her down.
No, my.
Okay, well, then we can address
Well,
you.
my-
This is like the last
Well,
desperate dying breath.
No, my.
Okay, well, then we can address
Well,
you.
my-
This is like the last
Well,
desperate dying breath.
The prejudice
no.
versus the
That
probative
was
value.
savage.
I don't even see how he can come in.
That was a
on
judge,
issue with
that was
hearsay.
GTFO in
That's
judge.
just not part of this motion at this time.
was
Thank you, ma'am.
awesome.
All right,
Thank
Mr.
you,
Tobin,
bye.
your motion, you get the last word, sir.
Oh, no.
Um,
Yeah.
The last dying
You know,
breath is yours, sir.
Appreciate that the court shook your head when he made the snarky comment that this is not Edward R. Murrow. Obviously, the First Amendment applies to everybody, citizens, the New York
Yeah,
Times, or
yeah.
Maybe Ben
TMZ.
just put that out there.
And this
for,
is a First
for some
Amendment-based
red meat.
privilege.
I don't know.
Your Honor, the Philip Morris case is actually a
Oh,
very good
Amber's
case to
looking
answer your
kinda
Honor's
nervous.
question, about the intervention of somebody else in order to assert the privilege. Their ABC was a defendant in the case, and it moved in order to prevent other people, the phone company.
Ben
they were
couldn't
in the
care
case.
less about the
I
shots
understand.
taken.
There is no other
Like, look at his
mechanism,
face. He's
though,
like,
and
yeah.
say what you
so,
want.
It would be an interesting procedural issue for appeal, Your Honor, whether a journalist.
Well, Ben
a
effectively
journalism
asked her, do you want me to
organization
go
or anybody
further? Do
else
I need to?
who's a
And
First
she's like,
Amendment
nah.
holder
Did you
would be denied
anyone catch the veiled
on a
threat?
Constitutional.
It would be an
basis.
interesting issue on appeal.
I also, just for the record and for the
mean, it is.
Side note,
merits
bad
of
way,
the case,
bad way to
if I
win a motion
understood,
argument
Mr.
is to
Chu
say that.
correctly, he said this is not an issue in the
It
litigation.
would have,
It does not
hate to see
Gee,
anything
it
happen to
would
your
be-
judgeship.
litigation.
It would be
Well, it's
such
not
a
an
shame
issue
if
in
you
the
got
litigation. It's
overturned
not
on
part of
appeal.
a prima facie, part of the defense, part of the allegation.
Look at that smirk.
It's impeachment evidence.
Look at that
It's
face.
collateral to the main
Oh my
case of the
God.
case.
Thank you, Court
Under
TV.
the
Trying
Brown
so
v.
hard not to
Commonwealth
laugh.
decision
Like-
of the
Okay,
Virginia Supreme
so
Court,
that's-
under the application
That
of
is not the
privilege,
expression
That
you want
is-
from the judge.
Look at the judge might have made a
that.
decision already.
That's
allegation
You
in
got
litigation. It's
overturned
not
on
part of a
appeal.
prima facie, part of the defense, part of the allegation.
Look at that smirk.
It's impeachment evidence.
Look at that
It's
face.
collateral to the main
Oh my
case of the
God.
case.
Thank you, Court
Under
TV.
the
Trying
Brown
so
v.
hard not to
Commonwealth
laugh.
decision
Like-
of the
Okay,
Virginia Supreme
so
Court,
that's-
under the application
That
of
is not the
privilege,
expression you want from
That
the
is-
judge.
Look at the judge might have made a
that.
decision already.
It
We
is
can read
not
into
I am
that, right,
so,
Mark?
I am so
in this
freaking happy
case.
right
just
now.
tell me when
This
you're going
is-
to stop talking.
Again, it's not being compelled, it appears.
Well, he is appearing by
Again.
subpoena, and it is a compulsory process, and he will have an obligation unless he asserts privilege under oath. But it is our privilege.
Oh
Your
God,
Honors.
she's
It's
doing
not
everything not to
an
smile.
employee, a loyal
Yep.
or a
It's
rogue
done.
employee's
It's
privilege to
done.
waive.
Tell the
on
Court of
behalf
Appeals.
Yeah.
his
She's
employer.
biting the sides of
This
her
is an
cheeks.
unusual situation.
It's not an unusual
But the
situation.
law, but the answers are there in the law.
Look at
It
Johnny.
is-
Tell me
it is a
about it.
First Amendment
She's over this
concern.
case.
It's
Look
not
at
the
Johnny
first
Depp.
unusual
Oh, this is
situation in this
fantastic.
case, I
Yep.
think.
For either
Tell you
of
for
us,
Mr. Tobin.
for anybody here, I'm sure.
Yes, sir. I appreciate you coming in today and I
you,
appreciate your
Your Honor.
arguments. Yes,
I
sir.
appreciate
Thank
your
you.
I
argument.
appreciate it.
All right, in this
As
matter,
soon as she said
under
that's a-
Virginia Rules
that's a
Supreme
deadly
Court
line.
3:14, a new party may intervene as a plaintiff or defendant to assert any claim or defense germane to the subject matter of the proceeding. A new party may not intervene unless they assert some right involved in the underlying litigation. A party is not entitled to intervene merely because a byproduct of the litigation adversely impacts them.
Byproduct.
And
That's
the
what it
decision
is.
to allow intervention is within the broad discretion of the trial court. Here, the rights asserted are not germane to the trial. The central issues in this case are whether defendant defamed plaintiff and whether plaintiff defamed defendant through a theory of vicarious liability. The issue of the confidentiality of sources has not come up as in other cases cited by EHM, which is the corporation that TMZ belongs to is under their umbrella. In
Fine,
Brown
Fine. Umbrella
versus
guy?
the Commonwealth, there was an attempt by the criminal defendant to subpoena institutions in order to obtain the name of the confidential source. When the author of the article was subpoenaed, she refused to identify her confidential source on the stand. And in this case, it appears that the witness is willing to state the name of the confidential source without being compelled voluntarily. Whether that breaches a non-disclosure agreement between Mr. Tremaine and EHM is not germane to this matter and can be litigated in a separate matter if EHM so chooses. And while breaches of contract must be taken seriously, and the court does, any alleged breach is not germane to the underlying litigation here. That contractual action has no bearing on this case and is thus not germane to this litigation. Therefore, I'll deny the non-party EHM
Denied.
Productions motion to intervene.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank
For
you.
the
Now you can
record,
call
I've
me
known Mr. Tobin for several years. I meant no snarkiness toward him.
You're just a snarky guy.
Snarky. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank
For
you.
the
Now you can
record,
call me
I've known Mr. Tobin for several years. I meant no snarkiness toward him.
You're just a snarky guy.
I love it. That's
Oh,
amazing.
For the
Ashley,
record,
Mr.
Your Honor, I am concerned that we preserve the issue fully. And so.
For the record, yes.
For the
sir.
record. And so I would ask, may I have the opportunity to object when Mr. Tremaine
No,
is
you're not.
questioned?
You're not a party.
Question
You're not
my
a
question.
party.
You're,
No.
no, sir, you're not a party to this case. However, I will
Nope.
note for the
Yeah.
record your objection
she
to
just
his
said.
complete
Yes.
testimony on behalf of your client.
Right, thank you, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. Your microphone.
Oh,
As
that
with
would have
the
been bad.
Hicksville,
He would have been sitting there.
Witness, Your Honor, I would ask that we could voir dire him before the jury to find out when
What?
he contacted counsel and when.
Reasonable
when they became
question.
aware of it.
It's a reasonable
I
ask.
think also.
In front of the
under
jury?
the circumstances.
No,
no.
In fairness. I
Before.
think
No,
we should
before- before the
ask
jury.
him What he's going to claim.
Okay, but I'm not understanding the English
Okay,
language here.
response.
Isn't before
Yeah,
mean in front
fine.
of?
Your Honor, I don't think that's.
I agree,
appropriate.
Hogue, it's
Certainly,
vague.
I don't think the proffer is necessary or appropriate in this case.
I'm not going to do a proffer in this matter.
Okay, well, never
All right.
mind, not so much.
Oh,
Judge, shut
Mr.
it
Rutten,
down.
it's almost at lunch.
I know, I'm so sorry. But truly, I truly am the messenger here because Mr. Murphy just informed me that he has to just clarify one thing about.
One clarification.
Okay, all right, okay.
Sure,
That's
whatever.
fine. I think we need Ms. Myers.
By the way,
Yeah.
this is how Judge Askarati acts on the bench when she's not on camera. Like, this is her demeanor and attitude. This little
I love it.
quip. It's awesome.
You're just a snarky guy.
That was.
She's
that
my
was-
favorite.
Thank you, Your Honor.
You're just a snarky guy.
Nice.
Man, I want the shirt.
Now I'm really glad I reviewed that motion yesterday. Oh, that was awesome.
Rob, you nailed it, buddy.
Yeah.
If you didn't watch Rob's live stream
Yep.
last night, he nailed it.
That judge's shit-eating grin, though, was worth the price of
Oh.
admission.
Oh
What a
God,
great
yeah.
camera shift.
Oh my
How
God.
she was just trying so hard not to laugh, even it seemed like she was
Yeah.
just like, yes, I will patiently hear you out, but I've made up my mind.
Yep.
You're full of shit.
Yep. I
Yeah.
appreciate your arguments. They have no weight,
Yes.
but I will listen to you.
As soon as he finished and she said, I appreciate your argument, there was
Yeah,
something about
when-
that I was like, nope, she's not going with him.
Well,
She's
from
made
the
up her
very
mind.
beginning, she was like, "Well, you cited to this argument. That's in criminal court, so that's not your
Mhm.
strongest argument. And then you cited
That's
here,
in
and that's not
subpoena.
applicable either."
All right, so
let's
to,
talk about
to the
this one.
chat, this one's going to be very funny because Sean, potentially criminal, had an interesting prediction, and his prediction was, kind of conspiracy theory here. What if TMZ
All right,
doesn't own the
So
copyright?
court will be in recess. Let's come back at 2 so everybody gets an hour for lunch, okay?
Well, then
All right,
what?
2
I
o'clock.
mean, I don't know what do we do with
So
that?
we're getting another hour of lunch break to talk about more. Yay.
Then
Well, the source could say they don't,
TMZ's in some hurt
because then they have fraudulent DMCA claims.
because they've been asserting that
Ooh,
Yeah.
copyright.
That's also true.
Yep,
Then they've
that's
got
what we were
lawsuit
talking about
coming out
last
of it.
night. Yeah, it was so much fun. Oh, this is awesome.
512F?
Now, TMZ in their motion, it should be noted, and their declaration already locked and loaded the herd team with at least the notion that this individual doesn't have firsthand knowledge of any of this. So they'll have that ready for their
Yeah.
cross.
Yeah, I mean, that's why the reason they wanted the proffer, because, like,
Oh,
so that's a foundation,
thanks, Hassan.
objection foundation. How do you know? Which
Yep.
is fair enough.
And TMZ might be lying. I mean, they might be overstating their position.
Yeah, there you go. Much better.
We don't lie, right? I mean, that's an officer of the court. Might be overstating his position. We might a little extra relish on the hot dog.
Well, yeah, well, yeah. might be somewhat exaggerating. And Elaine says, what was her, I want to like the exact quote. The paraphrase is, we don't expect that he's going to testify that it came from Amber Heard. I'm like, are you sure you don't expect that? Because I don't know, man.
It was interesting that she said someone, like, you're not in front of the jury right now. You don't want that on TV. You don't even want to say the word Amber Heard right there.
That's why, like with that one, it's like one of those where, Elaine, don't stand up, just sit down. Like, don't say anything, because anything you say at this point in time is going to look like you're on the bandwagon of trying to block information that looks like your client might have sent the video to TMZ.
Yeah.
It was this close. She almost said it. Like, there's a big pause before she's like, someone leaked this stuff. I'm like, I mean, presumably he's going to say a name, right?
Okay, look, I'm as much a fan of the next guy as legal arguments to keep things out of court.
Yeah.
If the law supports it, the law supports it, right? So I don't object to her trying. It's just like, yeah, the judge is right. All the case law that exists, and we kind of read through it yesterday, and so I was open to a different argument, but all the case law spoke to people being compelled to reveal their sources. And so, yeah, they dropped a subpoena as like part of a legal formality. But if this guy gets on and is like, yeah, I don't want to be here, I mean, that's a whole different problem. If this guy's like, yes, I want to tell you the things, so very, very much about the things, like, yeah, you might have a breach of contract claim. That is distinctly not my problem.
Yeah.
So good luck on that. Let us know how it turns out.
As a corporate guy, right? As a corporate lawyer, I respect TMZ going up to bat on that, which is, he was our employee. That's our privilege. It's not his. And I also respect the judge being like, sounds like a personal problem to me.
I'll give TMZ credit. His position on his motions papers was not inherently absurd.
It was
It was a reasonable legal position from square zero. Unfortunately for him, the case law that exists does not ultimately support that position.
Yeah.
And this judge does not seem to be particularly inclined to extend the case law
to
this new bull position.
Yep. It was funny. It was like the argument made sense until you actually looked at the cases he was citing, and you were like, hang on, this case doesn't say what you think it says.
But they had some fun footnotes there, yeah.
And I also appreciated his last ditch effort at the end to say, Your Honor, when it comes up, can I object? And she basically turns to him and says, Sir, this is a Wendy's.
Yeah,
she does. That's exactly. Did you not hear me talk about you not being a party? Did
you miss that part?
You know that like not everyone can just like walk in here and object to things, right? Like you
Law
have to be a certain
Law
number
2 is
of
going to
people.
control objections tomorrow.
Any corporate guy on the panel, every corporate guy on the panel knows that, like, you saw that and you're like, you know what? Okay, you're going to get to go home to your boss and say, like, I did what I could. I even asked them for this, but it was never.
It was the old college try. It was the old college try.
Are they going to reveal some
I do not
TMZ
disrespect
secrets?
TMZ for giving it a run.
I do love the Schadenfreude of the entire thing, because TMZ is just so happy all the time to have secrets spilled to them. Just like all the time, they love the secrets. Num num num. It's like their favorite thing, and the possibility that some of TMZ's secrets on how they do business might get exposed. It's like the Schadenfreude is very, very real in my mind. Schadenfreude is one of my favorite things.
Oh God,
I'm here for it.
Look how excited Kurt
I am
is.
so excited.
In
The
fact,
Schadenfreude is very, very real. You don't have to have Spidey to analyze my facial emotions.
No, we don't.
I'm pretty on board with the Schadenfreude.
Speaking of Kurt, I do want to say, if you want to see Kurt look this happy more often, we've covered Alita, we've covered Legal Bites. Now is the time to think about subscribing to Uncivil Law. Uncivil Law, how close are you to 100,000 subscribers?
The other thing people need